very warm welcome back. Thank you very much for your company. Now, folks, a new large-scale search for the missing teenager Jay Slater started this morning. Police called for volunteers to help with the search, which began at 9 a.m. local time in the village of Masker, close to Jay's last known location.
The 19-year-old from Lancashire vanished on the 17th of June in Tenerife. Since then, a GoFundMe page has been set up with over £40,000 worth of donations to help find him.
Yeah, and this case has, of course, attracted a lot of the conspiracy theorists on social media and intense speculation as to Jay's whereabouts. Well, joining us now to discuss this is the online safety expert and ex-covert internet investigator for the Met Police, Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan, that's a role that isn't going anywhere anytime soon, internet investigation. Just how important is the internet in this actual case?
Yes, good morning. It's very important. Unfortunately, the internet seems to get taken over by trolls in the sense that lots of disinformation comes out, and now you've got things like AI that can create, let's say, false sightings, if you will. The fact is that social media can be very helpful. In this case, however, in particular, because we're talking about the disappearance in the, if you like, the middle of nowhere, there isn't going to be much there's not really much internet activity up there, apart from what we now know of from his friend Brad Hargreaves, who said he did contact, or Jay contacted him, and he was able to say that he seemed to be on a gravel path or gravel road rather than a tarmac type road. So yeah, the internet gets used in many ways and can be used for good, but it can also be used by the individuals who want to put out conspiracy theories there, which hopefully the police will be just ignoring.
Does internet sleuthing ever hinder investigations like this?
Yes and no. It hinders in the sense of the public getting involved. What I mean by that is they're involved, obviously, with the internet. However, it can be very, very useful, but hindering, even in my time when I was working all those years ago, yeah, the public would get involved, and there'd be these false sightings in missing person cases, or there'd be false allegations, etc. So it does hinder, it does get in the way of the police investigations, because everything has to be looked at and everything has to be judged on its own merit. I do say I hope they tend to ignore it, but what you would tend to have is like a small department of good detectives and investigators and intelligence officers be able to say, well, we can ignore these types of things. You've just got to go back to Nicola Bulley and see what happened there. The fact that it was so easy for people to turn up at the scene and start filming themselves, whether you want to call them TikTokers or influencers, or they're going to be there and they can get in the way. It's slightly different here because of the location. We know there's already lots of people going out there. You've got one very eminent TikToker who's actually doing some of the routes and climbing. He's out there, but he's also obviously been welcomed by the family, apparently. So with that case, yes, it can help. But yeah, it does tend to get in the way of a lot of investigations.
And Jonathan, sorry, Emma.
That's all right.
Do you, is there a part of that you mentioned the TikTok trend and the way in which actually that's keeping up the profile of this case? But how many people actually go missing like this every single year? You know, in your line of work, were you dealing with a lot of missing person cases? And actually, we've all been talking about how the fact that his Instagram account was logged into and all these other things, and actually, because that's part of daily life now, we are focusing on these things a hell of a lot more, but just how common are missing persons in general?
Missing people, you're talking hundreds of thousands a year will go missing. Doesn't mean they stay missing. Now, that's quite few and far between, but in the sense of that percentage of how many people actually go missing. One thing you mentioned there is about the social media aspect to it, and it can help. It really can help. The fact that we're able to ping, as you keep hearing, the phones, and you can see the last known activity. And it's a real shame in this sense that we've actually got a phone that's battery's died, and we know that from Jay Slater himself. But yeah, it's one of these things. We know hundreds of thousands go missing, and they can be found, and that's where we now know technology can really help. You know, the fact that we've got location services, we've got GPS. Even one of his friends said, "Turn your location on, so I know where you will." With things like Snapchat and Instagram, the fact that you can automatically see and you can get a ping to see the location. So technology plays its part in finding a lot of people. And some people might say, well, it's a shame that GPS trackers aren't used more for good rather than, in fact, sometimes we do get concerned with all the issues around things like the tracking in awful stalking cases.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel like we could talk about this much
definitely.
more. I've got more questions, but unfortunately we don't have time for them.